Welcome back everyone to another episode of All About Mechanics. Today is Shipwright's Regret for the Ascending Tide DLC. Now much like some of the more recent DLC dungeons, this does actually have 3 unique bosses with 3 individual hard modes. And you can't progress to the next one and unlock that hard mode until you've completed the one before. Or you can just do them all on non-hard mode if you prefer. Now this ad pool here, by the way, just pay very close attention to that big goo ball in the middle there. You do have to watch out for the big AoEs. The rest of them, pull them all in together and just kill them in your own time. But be aware, of course, the range stuff at the back will have big conal AoEs that you need to step out of, and a big circular one as well that can be fired up into the air, so be careful. Now, going back on the bosses, while there are 3 unique bosses with 3 unique hard modes, there are also 3 secrets as well, and of course we're going to show them. But generally, Zos tends to design their dungeons to teach you along the way, and this is your first breadcrumb mechanic here. You might see this very briefly, but those ghosts there did actually beam the tank. Now that beam makes them have less armor, less healing, and less damage output. That is very relevant for a future boss, and those can't be taunted. Now, the next ad pool, again, very simple. Make sure your tank is paying full attention. Taunt what you can, of course, but obviously focus the big stuff, especially that big ball of goo. And at the back there's another breadcrumb. If you don't pay attention to that, when you come to the next boss, you're going to be in trouble. You have to interrupt that flame shaper at the back. If it doesn't die, it's not the end of the world, but it must be interrupted at all costs. Otherwise, it's a real big problem. Now, we're coming up to the first secret up here. As you can see here, there's a house in the corner. Go into the door, and on to the left, there is a trapdoor on the floor. Now, this will give you access, basically, or the way to find it, the first secret boss. Now, unlike other bosses in other secret places on other dungeons, these do have some challenging mechanics. They are a little more complex than just run up and nuke it. While some players may be able to do this, there are design mechanics that you will have to pay attention to. So basically, get your tank to taunt that boss in the middle of the room and turn it away from the group. Most of the time, you'll see the group in a triangle formation behind the boss, so there's 2 DPS and a healer, one either side and a healer in the middle, as you can see there, but you may have to dodge in and out of mechanics. Now, the boss will put a big conal effect at the tank. Make sure you're not standing in that, otherwise you'll get stunned and you may die. And of course, there's icicles that come out of the ground. Now, bear in mind, once she gets to around 50% health, she's going to spawn 3 minions in the room. That does depend which mechanic she's going through at the time, because obviously she's got to finish what she's doing, but you can push her a bit further. When that happens, the boss in the middle will be immune, and there'll be 3 ads around the room. Each one of these are a reflection of herself, and they have very similar mechanics. Big cone that you don't want to get caught on, otherwise you're going to have to break free, or you might die during it. And of course, we've got the icicles on the ground. Again, they can be killed, or you can just avoid them. Just make sure that all the time, if you're the tank, you are taunting these ads, and make sure as DPS and healers, you stay behind them. If you get in front too often, you're going to get caught and you're going to die, especially if those conal AoEs overlap. So try to stay behind them at all times. The boss in the center of the room, however, while these are active, is immune to absolutely everything. So no, you can't taunt her, you can't do anything. So once the 3 ads are down, it's back on the boss and the mechanics are the same again. There will be a big boom initially, but that will be fine as long as you've got heals on the ground. Kill the icicles if you can and stay out of that circle. The big spread there will be coming from the other ads because they're now in ghost form, so just watch your feet. If you see one of them using one of those AoEs, get out. If they overlap and you get caught by more than one, you're dead. Now for killing this, we do have a buff. We have a bonus now to our maximum magicka, actually 10%, and when your health reaches 10% or less, as long as it's not a one-shot, you will actually get a damage shield. Now this can happen once every 30 seconds in combat, no matter where you are, whether it's ad pools, bosses, whatever, but just be aware, while there is a benefit, don't deliberately go low health too often, because the cooldown will catch you out. It's a helpful buff, really good for healing sets as well, because you've got the magicka increase, although you may be built into stam, so rip. But it's very nice nonetheless. Now again, you've seen these pulls before, but watch out for those ghosts. See all those beams there? That is what I was talking about. You can't taunt those things. They won't listen to you. So if you do have them on you, do not run away. Don't run around the room. Just bring it in so the tank can actually debuff it, because you can still apply a taunt to debuff. But those beams, if you've got one on you, you do less damage, take less healing, do less healing, and you take more damage. So be very careful. Those breadcrumb mechanics are throughout DLC dungeons. They always show you what you're going to need to understand later. That was your learning section right there. If you don't learn that nice and quick, this boss is going to be a problem. And this boss can be a problem for many people. Does take some coordination. We are going to activate the hard mode. Just bear in mind, I'll explain the non-hard mode stuff as we go, if not after. So, First of all, that boss must be turned around at all times. You can see our triangle formation behind the tank there, DPS either side, healer in the middle. We're going to try to maintain that throughout, so we always know where people are standing. Stay behind the boss and watch out for the charge. He will always charge at the tank, so make sure you've got your back to a wall somewhere, just so it doesn't go across the entire room. However, when the charge is finished, you have to watch out because 4 ghosts will come out and each one will try and beam a target. So a tank, a healer, a DPS, or whatever. So now they are primary, you have to kill them. The big AoE you saw come out there, everyone needs to dodge that, otherwise anyone caught in it will have to break free. And also for being caught, you now have your own variant of it, which will also burst and people have to avoid that. And that can be devastating, so pay full attention to that. As you saw then, there was a Flame Shaper introduced, the tank did bring that in. That is a primary target over the boss, but above all, you must interrupt it. Apart from that, there's a very large, very hard hitting heavy attack on the tank, so make sure you're blocking that, otherwise you're dead. As you can see there again, big spreading AoE. When it peaks and pops, you need to dodge it. If you don't dodge it, people will get stunned and people will die. Again, these ghosts are primary targets. If you don't get rid of them, everyone's debuffed. When the boss hits 60%, you'll get an AoE underneath each of you and Malcolm will come out of the ground. As you can see there, he pounded the ground with a big hit. We're all taking damage over time from these big AoEs, and there's a circle of poison on the ground growing exactly the same as a Thervacon boss in Fang Lair. Keep out of it. As you can see there, the tank is trying to make sure the boss is in the middle of the room, but I had to give him some room so he could come through me to get away from that poison. We're all in a fairly disciplined position where we're not moving around too much, we're not overstacking the AoEs, and everything's happy. Now, once he's down, the boss will introduce a new mechanic. As you can see there, I've got a spreading AoE on me. 1 person needs to stand in that with me. 2 is too many, 3 is too many. Dodge that, carry on as normal. That's the only extra mechanic now. Everything else is the same. Charge, ghosts come out, kill the ghosts. Flame Shaper, interrupt it, kill the Flame Shaper. Big circle of death, 1 person stack with it to make sure they mitigate the damage. Big boom, dodge roll, don't get caught. Anyone that gets caught will make another one happen. It's a chain reaction. From here on, exactly the same mechanics all the way through. Make sure your tank always stays full health if you can help it, because otherwise that heavy attack will go straight through their life. It's painful. Again, remember the big boom, dodge roll it. If anyone gets caught like that, 2 people got caught there, that doubled up. Now, around 30%, we're getting another Malcolm. Same mechanics as before, spread out, don't stack, keep your heals up, focus the boss. But watch out for the Flame Shapers now. You're going to have up to 3 of these. Wherever they spawn in the room, they must be interrupted. Now, while I would recommend that you do focus these, you don't necessarily have to as long as they're not channeling. If they're channeling, that is a big problem. So calm down, keep the heals coming, maintain an aggro function of some sort, whether it be a range taunt or a close range taunt, it doesn't matter. As long as he's aggroed, keep that on the tank and deal with these. But once Malcolm dies, now you're getting the bomb mechanics again, and now it's doubled up. 1 person in each bomb protecting the one who has it on them. So 2 and 2, instead of just 2 in one of them. You get doubled up. If anyone misses that, it's a one-shot. So whoever has a circle around them, whoever doesn't has to stack with them. You stack the 2 circles, you're dead. You don't have someone helping you, you're dead. That's it. Now the remainder of the fight is every mechanic you have already seen. Flame Shapers will come in, the ghost will charge, and bombs will happen. Stack up in 2s every time you get the bombs. Focus the ghosts every time they're in the room. Dodge roll the big boom every time it happens. The tank needs to maintain aggro, and you can now pace the fight as much as you like. There is no DPS check here at all. Just keep hitting the adds until they go down, and then maintain some form of damage on the boss. Yes, you can focus the boss at this point, but just bear in mind you've got those adds on you that are negating your damage output, so it's going to be longer anyway. This does get a little bit faster because the booms and the charges are more regular, but the mechanics don't change. If you do get rid of all the ghosts, when he charges, he'll spawn more of them. But if you leave 1 alive, as long as it's not on the tank, because that one will debuff him, then you can focus on actually just pushing the boss and he won't spawn any extras. But it's really, really tricky. Stack for bombs, kill the ghosts, watch out for the boom. And don't panic at execute. As you can see here, we've got a very clean finish. We're pushing towards the boss's death, and at the same time, there's a big boom. Nobody got execute panic here. Perfect dodge rolls. Nobody stuns. Nobody calls a wipe. Basically, it's all coordination. As long as everybody knows exactly what they're doing, you're on the same page, spread out, get in, dodge roll, stop it, kill the adds, hit the boss, get into a routine and you'll be fine. And as you can see, they're teabagging the boss, and rightly so. Anyway, moving on. So now we open the door and go to the next secret. Now there are some ad pulls along the way, but the secret is off the right here, just underneath the waterfall. If you've been playing games for long enough, you know full well we always check under waterfalls to see if there's anything behind it. Well, luckily for you, today there is. So off to the right here, jump in the water, go straight underneath it. Of course, you can kill the ads first if you want to, but we're going that way anyway afterwards, so there's no need, really. Now again, this boss does have its own unique mechanics, and you do get a very unique buff or bonus for the remainder of the dungeon from this particular boss if you kill it. Just bear in mind, of course, much like the last boss, this is going to require some coordination. Most of the new DLC stuff tends to favor everyone working together rather than one person carrying everybody. It's not like some of the earlier dungeons in the game where the tank just holds the boss in the corner and everybody slaps it. There are some scenarios where you can do that, but this dungeon is not strictly one of those. There's a lot of moving, there's a lot of coordination, there's a lot of focusing on everyone pulling their weight. Now, while this can be straightforward, one person making mistakes all the time can make a mess of it. So, simply put, for this particular boss, hold him still, turn him around and slap him. But there will be extras. So, during the fight, the boss will spawn 2 dogs, one either side of the boss, and 2 players will be targeted. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but keep an eye on your feet. Underneath your feet, you'll see a little circle, and when that happens, 3, 2, 1, dodge. Or just hold block, whichever you fancy at the time. You can completely avoid it, or you can block it. But during the fight also, as his health goes down, you will see this mechanic kick in, where he will disappear, and there are 4 ads around the room that must be interrupted. Each one will drop a pool, and then they'll all go boom after he spawns back into the room. So mind your feet. Back into position again, we can see we're in the triangle formation, DPS, DPS, healer, dogs, dodge, carry on. That's pretty much it. There will be some additional ads in the room, as you can see. Additional ads, good job. English is terrible, but there will be some extra dogs in the room that you'll have to pay attention to. They aren't that stressful, they don't blow up, so you can just kill them with basic area of effect damage on the ground. But if you want to focus them, then of course, by all means do so. Just watch out for the explosions on the floor after the ads have been interrupted, and carry on as normal. This is as much of a stack of burn as you're going to find in this particular dungeon. There aren't many situations where that really happens, but this is quite straightforward. As long as you dodge the dogs, and as long as you interrupt these guys when the boss disappears, the fight won't be a problem for you. In fact, I would safely say this is probably easier to get used to than the first secret, but also it's quite punishing because if the dogs do catch you, you will blow up. So keep an eye on that. Always, always, always look at the boss. If you see those 2 coming out of the ground, 3, 2, 1, dodge. Even if it's not on you, it will help you to just avoid the damage anyway, because the area of effect is quite nasty. Apart from that, rinse, repeat. The mechanics never change. So to recap, when these guys spawn, interrupt them as fast as possible. They'll put AoEs on the ground and they will pop, and the boss will come back into the room. He will also pop when he comes back into the room. Then hit the boss, watch out for the 2 dogs that spawn. If they're on you, then dodge roll or block. Make sure you've got mitigation bonuses and it won't be a problem for you. If the small ads come into the room and start hitting you, obviously focus them down, and the rest of the time, just slap the boss. As you can see again, we're using the triangle formation where there's a DPS left and right and a healer in the middle. That tends to work in most situations. Now, the buff we've been given is actually very nice. If you take a massive hit and it takes more than 50% of your health in one hit, not a one shot, by the way, just more than 50%, then for the next 5 seconds, all of your healing done is increased by 100%. And that has a 30-second cooldown. That, alongside of your other buff, where if you go low health, under 10%, you get a damage shield, is pretty nice. It means if you get a big hit, you go low, you get a shield, and you can heal up nice and fast. Not to mention, of course, we've now got a 10% health increase, which is really, really handy. So we've got 10% mag, 10% health so far. There will be a further buff towards the end of the dungeon, but we'll get to that secret when we get there. Breadcrumb mechanics, again, as you can see here, we've got some Spriggans, which need to be interrupted. Pay attention to those. But, battery low, rip. The Lurchers are a problem. You will come into contact with them soon. They're not massively OP, but they do have a new mechanic that some people may have never seen before. Basically, they turn their arm into somewhat of a rocket launcher, basically, or a big flat cannon. They raise their arms into the air. Their arm morphs into some weird cannon of some description, and then there's a bloody great burst in front of them. So be careful as a DPS. Do not stand in front of the Lurchers. There it is, that big splurt there. Bang, 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 bang. Dead. Careful. Do not stand there. Now, that won't present too much of a problem to the everyday player because most people would assume that a massive big cone of death means don't stand in it, but I know some people will, so just be aware that is coming. Always stay behind it and you won't have any issues with it. Again, we've got 2 lurchers here. The ones that appear on the boss do actually have more health, so you have to be aware of that, but just understand their basics. Zos will always teach you mechanics that you are going to see later, so don't just zerg through these really fast and just plow your way through enemies without understanding what they do. While that is fun to do, at least your first time pay close attention to what each individual enemy brings to the table mechanics wise, because you will have to interact with them. Now, something else that isn't along the way that you will have to pay attention to on the next boss are stranglers. Stranglers are the bane of my existence in most scenarios, because they're just a pain in the ass, quite frankly. They yoink you across the room, they stun you, they make things really difficult, and if a tank is pulled by a strangler, it's game over, especially with a one-shot boss. So, this is a very big tip for you, and it will be mentioned in the fight as well. If you see a strangler, kill it. Because if that tank gets stunned, you're all going to die anyway. It doesn't matter how hard you think you can hit, if you are chaining all of your combos into that boss and not killing the strangler is eventually going to kill you. So pay attention. Now, we're hitting hard mode here. Hard mode does have a very specific change to the mechanics. Now, strictly speaking, these dogs that spawn, they will blow up the room. You'll see that in a moment. On non-hard mode, you can survive the burst. On hard mode, you cannot. This is a DPS check. Not a DPS check for the boss. The boss doesn't have a DPS check. You can take as long as you like. But there are phases that do require some extreme damage output on hard mode only. Now this here, you'll see we've got the boss that's going to put loads of AoEs on the ground. Just move your feet, don't get caught. They will stun you or they'll kill you, so don't get caught by those. In the meantime, the boss obviously will do a nasty spin with her staff and hit the tank with a heavy attack that must be blocked, and it wrecks. Kill the wasps as soon as possible and watch out for the charge. And of course, when she slams her staff down, there'll be big red roots coming out of the ground. This is where I shout red, red, red. Dogs there. This must be killed as soon as possible. Then turn around and kill one on the opposite side of the room. There are 4 in the room. You want to make sure you kill polar opposites. Otherwise, you won't have a gap to stand in, and this boom will kill you. If you don't kill those dogs within the amount of time it takes for the room to explode, you will die. There is no way around it. There's no protection. There's no special buffs. You will die. Now, as you go through the next phase, you will get a lurch in the room and you will get some stranglers. Make sure to always look around and focus the stranglers no matter what. At this point, you can take as long as you like to get rid of that lurcher and as long as you like to get rid of the boss and also the ads, but you must get rid of the stranglers as soon as possible. Now, the boss is making a purple kind of AoE on the ground that will spread very, very slowly and then pop. Once it pops, it'll stay there on the ground. And of course, you will give her a bit of a buff. She hits really hard in there, she glows purple, and she's immune. So be really, really careful not to die there, because it's tricky. But be really, really careful on the tank, because this is going to hurt. Now, what you can do, if you like, is you can actually just kill the lurcher and leave her deliberately immune, like we have here. And that will give you a big window of opportunity to just clear the room, basically, because she's not going to do the doggy mechanic while she's in that phase. But as soon as she breaks out of it, she will. So be very, very careful. The doggies are up again. Yeah, I know, you could argue they're censures, but we're going to call them dogs anyway. You must make sure you kill them within the time limit. Now, strictly speaking, they're up for around 12 to 13 seconds, which means over 434 health each, which is just short of 900k damage required. You technically, per character, need about 33k DPS in order to kill them. But just bear in mind, that's 33 per person, sustained on a single target, and then swap to the other side of the room, and then doing it on another single target. It gets really, really stressful. So you could have one person per target, and if they've got 66k DPS each with the current buffs and bonuses you have, not just on the dummy, because that's a very different scenario, then you could argue that it's going to be nice and easy, but it's not. There is so much going on. Applying yourself that well every phase is not an easy task. So while we're doing this, as you can see, the lower the health, the more this happens. Here are some tips to maintain what you're doing. So if the dogs appear, the Spriggan boss will put her staff on the ground and some red roots will go across the floor. That's your opportunity to spot that. Just shout red, 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 and make sure your DPS are focusing those 2 dogs. If you've got dots on it and you know it's going to die, quickly run across and go and kill the other one. Then, when the Strangler's in a room, you must kill the Stranglers. When the boss is in this circle here, you've got two options. You can keep her in there while you're maintaining some form of composure in the room and getting rid of the Stranglers and adds if you want, or, if you're more advanced, you can kite her very, very slowly round the room so she never stays in that circle, which will give you a bit more burn, if you like. But here, we've deliberately left her in there so that we can show you what the hell is going on. She will put frontal AoEs out and a couple behind, she will have a big heavy attack, and she will make ads come in the room. So just keep an eye on that. As you can see here, we can't hurt her, so we've got plenty of time to recover. You can heal up, you can buff up, you can heavy attack if you want to get resources back. But when you're ready to move on, get her out of the circle, and then be ready for the dogs to come back in again. You must notice that phase. If you don't, you will die. And the tank needs mega heals because that boss one-shots in pretty much every scenario if you're not full health or a tank, basically. Again, Stranglers will spawn over time, so make sure that you get rid of them as soon as possible. If a Strangler is alive, the tank is going to get stunned and a heavy attack is going to kill them. Again, Strangler in the corner, get rid of it. Again, as you can see, we are deliberately slowing down this fight. You could just nuke it around the room, but it's going to require you to understand what's going on. Red, red, red. Kill the dog. Leave the dots on it. It's going to pop. Get to the back one. Drop an ulti on it. And throw everything you've got at that dog, but make sure that you stand in the gap. You can see there's two cones coming from each of the two dogs in the left and the right corner, or side even. They cross over. That's why you must kill polar opposite sides so you make a space. I know people are going to celebrate that they killed the dog, but you've got to make sure your feet are in the gap. Again, Lurcher must be on tank. Make sure you kill it and keep it away from the group at all times. It's not a race anymore. The only DPS race in here are the dogs, and while it sounds on paper low, in reality, it's pretty bloody high, so you've got to be very, very focused. If you consider yourself some form of a decent DPS player, then full focus on those things will be fine, but if not, then you're going to struggle and it's going to take you a bit of practice. It's tight, so I would recommend saving ultis for these phases. Now, while these are, strictly speaking, initially on health percentages, so like 70 and 40-ish, they're not quite. They do actually run on a timer now. So you have to make sure that you just keep doing what you're doing, and as soon as you see those roots hit the ground, shout red, 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 and kill it. The tank will be very useful if you can move the boss to the other side of the room while they're trying to get rid of one of the dogs, so it's in position for the next phase. But you don't have to if you don't want to. The reason we move the boss during these phases is so that the tank can get to the other side of the room and debuff the other dog while we are killing this one. So we're going to do one more phase of the red, red, red phase. As you can see, she's doing her AoEs. Watch your feet. And, oh, there's one more mechanic, by the way. At low health, we've got winds in the room. It's quite simple. Just don't stand in them. Much as any other AoE is going to kill you, that will as well. So just stay out of them. Now, Wasps are in the room, focus the ads. Stranglers in the room, focus the Stranglers. Again, you can push the boss here, but if you get this red phase and you don't go through with it, you're going to die. So red, red, red. Dog is stabbed. We're going to hit it. Then we move to the other side of the room. The other dog is debuffed now. Drop your ultis on it and delete it from the game. Make sure you stand in a space, because when that boom goes off, you will die. Now, this is going to be something that people will have to practice. It's not something that can be instantly nuked if you don't know what the hell you're doing. You are going to have to coordinate. But to recap, dogs, kill polar opposite sides of the room quickly. Boss, keep it out of the purple circle unless you want it to stay in there so you can give yourself some time. Bear in mind, she'll be immune if she stands in it. She'll be not immune if she doesn't. You can kite her from one door to the other very slowly, and usually if you're trying to go for a bit of a nuke, that does give you time. You can kill the dog, then kite her around in a semicircle. By the time she's got to the other side, you'll be on another dog phase. That depends on the group. But if you want to keep it safe, keep her in the circle till all the ads are gone, then move her out and focus the boss. It can be done very straightforward, it can be done very complicated, but hopefully that demonstration was enough. But bear in mind, you are going to need some serious DPSs. A normal situation in most content in the game, there aren't very many DPS checks at all. Generally speaking, it's all mechanics, apart from one or two areas in the game. That is a DPS check. Not the boss, not the ads, but those dogs that go boom must be killed. That is your one check in the entire dungeon. Now, this pool here, you're introduced to a new enemy. Strangely enough, you don't see this on the last boss, but we have got some Storm Atros. Bear in mind, most tanks, while they may be quite comfortable, might underestimate how hard they hit. They are pretty nasty. So the ad pool before last, which you'll see shortly, does need some serious focus. Make sure your tank taunts them as soon as possible. Now, these 2 ads around the corner here are telling us where to go. That leads us into that house there. That will take us to the last boss. However, wait, there's more. Mike, you'll like that one. If you're Mike, you know who you're talking to. If you're not, then never mind. Now, this is where we will be introduced to a final secret boss. So ignore that doorway and go around the back. We have to basically try not to fall in the water here and go around to a platform hidden behind one of the ships. Now, this boss, if you've seen overcharges before, you will probably be somewhat experienced in some of the basic mechanics, but it does have an additional one. So yes, you will get lightning on one player, and that player must stay away from the rest, otherwise they will shock everybody. Now at low health, the boss will have an additional mechanic where it will teleport around the room, doing shock damage in burst AoE, and it will jump from one player to the next, to the next, to the next. Do not panic, and do not run around the room. All you need to do is block until it's over. But you'll see that in a moment. Bear in mind, as a tank, you are going to get knocked down. You will be able to block his heavy attack, but he still knocks you over anyway, so put the boss in the middle of the room. If you put the boss on the edge over there, you're going to fall in the water, and there's lots of slaughterfish around here, and you will die. So look very carefully from the tank's perspective. We are DPS and healer in our triangle formation again. As you can see there, DPS one side, DPS other side, healer in the middle. That's the lightning charge. Do not run around the room with it. Just survive. Stay in your own heals. Don't touch anyone with it. Now, as you saw there, the boss did have a burst AoE that does hit quite hard. You can survive it with basic heals, but what he's now done is turned into a lightning form. So now you can expect the next mechanic. This is usually at low health. This is where he starts channeling, and then he will bounce around the room, going from one location to the next. Sometimes it's in an empty space. Sometimes it's on a player's head. When he does this, block. Yes, of course, I know your instinct is to try and dodge roll out of that. Trust me, you won't make it. If it's on the edge and you're really, really close, you might get lucky, but generally speaking, if it's under your feet, by the time you dodge roll, it's going to burst, and you can't actually dodge roll the damage that it hits you with, and you will take a one shot from it. So be very, very careful. You might be lucky enough to proc your buffs from the secret bosses, but it's really unlikely. Don't panic, stand where you are, and just hold block. Now, basically, we haven't moved the entire fight. It's time to kill him. It's execute, whatever. Keep up your rotations. Don't change what you're doing. Some of the biggest mistakes in the game are from players changing their routines when the health goes low because they get blindsided by execute panic. Don't change it. The people that start changing stuff for no good reason are the ones that die. So, as you can see, the mechanics stay the same. So do we. It's easy peasy. As soon as you start throwing out other shapes because you think that that's going to make the boss die quicker is when things will go wrong. And yes, that secret boss can wipe the group and does very regularly. Now, we have got a new buff, obviously. So we've had 10% magicka, we've had 10% health, we've got a damage shield at low health, and we've got some healing done at low health if we take a big hit, more than 50% of our health. Now, the new one that we've been given is this. Scroll down to here, you will see that we've actually got an increased 10% stamina as well, and your heavy attacks will deal additional 6k lightning damage to your target. So if you do need to heavy attack the boss or any adds, alongside all of your glyphs, your bonuses, your heavy attack itself, whatever stack and bonuses you have, you now have a flat 6k hit as well. Just bear in mind, of course, buffs and debuffs do apply to that, including crits and all that stuff, so it can hit very, very hard. So don't be scared to heavy attack, especially the small adds that can be around the room. If you run up and wind up a dual-wield heavy attack and then way into it, it's going to die bloody quickly. We did get a little bit lost here, but basically, here's the doorway again. Go into here, Zaji will fall from the ceiling and laugh because he's hilarious, and then we go on to the last boss. But there's a couple of pulls first. These are the ones that normally wipe people. Tanks get really, really complacent when it comes to this ad pull here because they think they can just jump in and just taunt one or two targets. Not really. You got to make sure you get hold of those Atros. If you don't get hold of the Storm Atros and interrupt them when they start channeling, you are going to kill the group rapidly. Now, while this may look relatively simple from a viewer's perspective, this pull is nasty. Those Storm Atros hit really, really hard. The snakes will knock you over, and the two-hander, or not two-hander, the sword and board even, will also cause a bit of a problem. So make sure that you've got a lot of control here and stay out of stupid. There are some big, big AoEs. And of course, the biggest pull of all, the final one. This is the wiper. If you're going for no death and you've got this far, take this one fairly slowly. You want to make sure you've got your buffs and bonuses already applied to your survival, and then you want to make sure your tank goes in first to grab all the big stuff. The Nightblade type enemies and the mages can do a lot of damage, but those Atros are a problem. Yes, we annihilated them nice and quickly. That was a little bit too fast for the demonstration, but hopefully you heard me actually say it. Watch out for the Atros. It's a big, nasty pull. Now we're going to go on to the hard mode. Now, just like every other fight so far, try to maintain that DPS, healer, DPS triangle formation behind the boss as much as possible. It's a very mobile fight. The tank is going to have to move around a lot. There's 4 fences in the room and a block in the middle of each one. The tank is going to have to use those spots. If you didn't notice already, by the way, there's no in-game sound today because guess what? The recording didn't have any sound with it. So we covered that with some nice music. And of course, this last boss is going to be no different. Let's get some of that pirate music going on once the fight starts. So at the beginning of the fight, it's basically stack and burn. Just keep slapping into the boss as much as you can while he's standing still. Keep it turned away from the group. Try to get into your triangle formation as soon as possible without too much of a gap. And watch out for that big AoE. Dodge it, walk out of it, whichever you feel more comfortable with. The boss will have some light attacks and heavy attacks that the tank has to deal with, but partly through this part, he will charge across the room. When he does that, you do not want to be in the way. That swing will one-shot you. But when he settles in the middle, you need to move your feet. And this is the mechanic. I just shouted feet, feet, feet every time it happened. Basically, he channels water around the room, and each splash could potentially one-shot you. 85% health, you basically get the 2 mechanics that are going to stay with you for the rest of the fight. You've got minions that will spawn at the side in 2s, which will put poison on the ground when they're channeling, so make sure you interrupt them. And you've got those waves that go across the floor. Those waves will actually debuff you with a water dot on you, so make sure that you keep some heals up and don't get caught if you can help it. If you block it, you'll still get the debuff. If you dodge it, you'll avoid it. Now, we do have a Malcolm in the room. He will spawn at this set of stairs every time, so don't mess this up. He will only ever spawn there. Make sure that you basically kill him. And he is dumb. Really dumb. He will charge at a random player. Don't run backwards, just get out of his way. He's a choo-choo train with no destination. He's just going in a straight line, even if he's taunted. So make sure you maintain a taunt on him at all times. He will run where he wants when he's doing that mechanic, but he'll come back to you afterwards. Now, as you can see here, the tank has gone specifically for those 2 adds on the corner there. There's a concrete block in the middle of that fence. Make sure your tank goes there to put the boss or Malcolm with the adds. That way, all we have to do as DPSs is make sure that we've got area of effect damage getting rid of those adds at the same time as maintaining damage on the boss or Malcolm, or we can focus the adds while we're there. Don't go around the room trying to deal with add after add after add. Deal with the ones that the tank is near. In the meantime, the healer at the back, if they can, pay attention to any channeling minions because they will need to be interrupted. As you saw then, the boss did some different mechanics. He actually threw out loads of splashes. Mind your feet, he's clearing the poison, it will hurt. Now, when he charges into the middle, remember, watch your feet. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Do not get caught by that. You can kill him by doing damage around him in a circle if you want, but you mustn't get caught. And here it's rinse, repeat. The tank will constantly move the boss. The boss will constantly charge to the middle and come back again. Watch for the frontal cone, by the way. No DPS want to stand in that. Now, the reason we're moving, again, is to take care of the adds. They won't necessarily always run into the room because you don't have to really taunt them. But what you want to do is make sure that you get down one group after the other, after the other, after the other. If you don't get rid of any, you'll have a whole room full. If you spend too much time dealing with adds, then, of course, the boss never takes any damage and you'll be there all day. There's not strictly a DPS race. You can take as long as you like, but make it easier and more efficient on yourself by moving the boss where you want the business to be dealt with. So here, 2 adds, take the boss to the 2 adds will go down. Once they're down, take the boss to 2 more adds, and so on and so forth. Repeat, repeat, repeat. While it looks very, very dramatic, here's the way to split it up. Boss, stack it on 2 adds. Deal with the adds and the boss at the same time. Once the adds die, move. If the boss charges in the middle, watch your feet. He's going to put water under you. If the splashes come out, he's clearing the poison, don't worry, but don't get caught. The big sprint AoE that I got caught by there isn't a one-shot, but you don't really want to get knocked over by it. And the waves that come in 2s, by the way, across the room, you do want to make sure that you dodge roll them if you can, or walk around them. If you get caught in them, you'll have a dot on you for a long, long time, and they do stack, and of course it can stun you too. So you want to avoid it. Apart from that, the final one is pay attention to these adds. They must be interrupted at all costs, otherwise the room will get engulfed in poison. You can out-heal it, but it's a lot of pressure. That is it. You rinse repeat this mechanic over and over and over until he gets to 40%, and then it changes once more. This is where 2 Malcolms will spawn, one either side of the room. As you will see, there's a set of stairs where the last one spawned, and there'll be one on the left-hand side where another one will spawn, and these must die. So, there are several different ways to approach this. This is the way I would suggest. Malcolms are dumb. If you taunt them, they will come to you, but they will still charge across the room. So all you need to do as DPSs and healers is keep an eye on that taunt debuff on the debuff timer. As long as you know he's taunted, he's not going to swing on you. He might charge at you, but he's not going to deliberately aim at you with his normal attacks. So you're pretty safe. All you need to do is let your tank move around from ad pool to ad pool with the boss and keep taunts on Malcolm. You, as DPSs, need to make sure that you kill one of the Malcolms, and then when he's dead, kill the other one afterwards. Or, of course, you can go YOLO on the boss if you really want, but just remember you're going to put pressure on the tank. Keep out of his frontal charges, and then hit him in the back. Keep out of his charge again, hit him in the back, rinse, repeat. Obviously, the ads need to go down. Obviously, you need to watch your feet, and especially when he's channeling, but your priority now is those 2 targets. If you see anything channeling, interrupt. If you see anything low health, kill it, but focus on Malcolm as much as possible. Once one is down, it makes the fight 10 times easier. Once the other's down, it's just you and the boss again. It's nice and simple. This does look very dramatic. It is very simple, but mistakes can be made and there's not much room for recovery. Now again, the easiest way to apply this is to continue what you were doing earlier with the tank. Take the boss to 2 ads, burn the ads with the boss, take the boss to some more ads. Repeat, repeat, repeat. But if you want to be a little bit more mobile, you can be a bit faster with that and just go around the room in a big square. The Malcolms need to be maintained taunt-wise, but because they're so slow and stupid, technically you're only really tanking the boss because they're never going to reach you in order to hit you. They're going to spend all their time doing this, being a dum-dum, walking around the room swinging at nothing, while the DPS wreck them in the back of the face. So if your tank's a little squishy, just kite around the whole room, keep an aggro until they're all dead. Then when it's just you and the boss and the tiny zombie ads, it's basically the same fight as it has been the whole time. It's really straightforward once the Malcolms are dead. Now just bear in mind, of course, on hard mode, you have 2 Malcolms at the end instead of 1. And on hard mode, everything has more health. So the zombies have got more health, Malcolms have got more health, the boss has got more health. The mechanics are basically the same. So if you can do the regular version, then the hard mode shouldn't be too much more difficult for you, but it is going to take you a bit longer. There is no DPS check for anything. There's no, if you don't do this, you're dead. It's just a case of managing what's in the room. As soon as you can manage that, as soon as your tank is comfortable with going from one ad pool to the next, and you manage the ads while you're there, the easier this fight gets. And at this phase here, when all the Malcolms are gone, the fight now at 10% or 1% or whatever is the same fight as it was at 70%. It's no different. So don't panic at execute. Focus your mechanics. It's just you and him. Easy peasy. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular dungeon, and hopefully you can get it done. Make sure you're subscribing, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.